All right. So we are honored and privileged to have Linda McKissack with us today. And before we do dive in to the discussion, Linda, I'd like to start with a brief introduction. Linda McKissack authored the USA bestseller, Hold: How to Find, Buy, and Rent Houses for Wealth. You are a highly sought-after communicator and entrepreneur, coach in the real estate industry and beyond. In the 1980s, you became the #1 real estate agent at Keller Williams Realty, and then went on to own multiple Keller Williams franchisees, became the #1 Keller Williams profit share earner, and purchased and built out the Keller Williams region in Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. Together with your husband, Jim, you own over 100 single-family rental properties in the Dallas, Texas area, and 34 nightly rental cabins in Branson, Missouri. Today, you work because you want to, not because you have to, and you're on a mission to help other entrepreneurs do the same. And I absolutely love this description. I work with successful real estate agents and entrepreneurs to help them understand, plan, and create 6- and 7-figure passive income streams while building great businesses. It's all about creating a legacy for your family while having freedom and margin for what matters most. You and Dana Gentry host a podcast called Everything Life and Real Estate. And listening to your podcast and hearing you speak at Keller Williams events, you've had a profound impact on countless people. And I can say in my own case, you've opened my mind and to bigger possibilities and much bigger dreams than I thought I would ever have. So I'm just grateful to have you here, Linda. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Very kind. It's always
Yes.
kind of interesting to hear people talk about your journey. You kind of get reminded yourself. You're like, oh yeah, we did that. Yeah, we did
we
that.
did. Well, speaking of journey, there is something behind that story, and I'd love to hear if you would share with us you and Jim's journey that brought you to where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I always like to start by saying, no matter where somebody is, even if you think you're in the worst place that you could possibly be, just believe that you're there for a reason, right? I always say the worst thing that happens to you can wind up being the best thing that ever happened to you after you learn the lessons you need to learn and you move forward in a different way than what got you there. But I think there's, you don't feel that at the time. I always like to say, being $600,000 in debt like Jimmy and I were is never marriage enriching. It's a miracle we've made it 43 years because when there's anger, there's usually fear underneath it. And there was truly fear in that period for me because I'd come from a very dysfunctional life and no money and living basically, we didn't have food stamps back then. We had what they called commodities, and somebody's old enough, they know what that is. But so I was used to being in a place where you kind of didn't feel in control of your life, and you certainly didn't have money. That wasn't something that you had or was even talked about. So the fear from me was I didn't want to go back to that. And I thought I had already escaped it, which I think a lot of people think wherever they are, okay, I'm there, I'm safe. And I think what we learned from this lesson, Rick, is graduallys and suddenlies are going to happen in life. I think part of God's plan, because I'm a faith-based person, is your journey is there for a reason. And I think your journey is there for you to figure out, how to work through it. What do you need to learn from it? And then how do you go back and help other people on the same journey? And so looking back, it's easy to see that in the middle of all of that, it was very painful and very scary because you don't know where the bottom is. I mean, it's fine if you know you're at the bottom, but no one ever knows they're at the bottom. You're like, I think I'm free falling and I'm not sure if I'm finished yet. Right. So that's what happened in the late 80s in Texas. It had one of the worst economic downturns it's ever seen. Even 2008, 2009 wasn't as bad as that one was. Now, I always like to say I was in my mid-20s. I don't even know what the word economy means, much less is it good or bad. But I knew something was wrong because Jimmy was super stressed. He, didn't want to go to sleep at night because he said, if I go to sleep, it becomes morning too soon. In the morning, the first call I get is from bankers and I don't have the money. And what happened is we had gone to Dallas to try to do a mini Dave and Buster's and spent all the money we had and everything trying to make this place work. And then with an economic downturn, it just wasn't possible. So we wound up selling that place for $600,000 less than we owed against it. So literally went to bed one night. The next morning after the sale, we owe people $600,000 we don't really have to give them. So it was super stressful. But again, if you give something long enough and you look for what you're supposed to learn from it and what do I need to know to not be here again? There's so many blessings in it, right? Like it was really the catalyst of how I got into real estate because I'd never lived in a home that we had owned as I grew up. No one, we just rented. And I didn't know what realtors did. But fortunately for Jim, his Pee Wee football coach, on the way, I guess, to take him to one of the football games or practices, he said to Jim, if you ever want to be rich, real estate is the way to do it. So Jimmy, in his, I'm sure 10-year-old mind, tries to keep this message straight for all these years and then give it to his wife. I always say, Jimmy, you got the message wrong. He didn't say, get a wife, get her to sell houses, y'all be rich forever. He said, buy some real estate, invest in real estate, build some, develop some, and come to find out he was actually a big developer out of Dallas. But I don't know if Jimmy knew the real message and didn't want to tell me what it was, or he knew we couldn't do it. But anyway, real estate was a perfect vehicle because it's one of the few things left in life that you get to decide how much money you're going to make. Whatever value you can bring to the world, you can make in return in cash flow. And that's what we needed very badly. So not knowing what a realtor did, I got into the real estate business, had no clue, honestly, how to do it. And back then, Rick, there was no training. There wasn't, offices that had, trainings 5 days a week. You literally had to figure it out on your own. So I only made $3,000 gross my first year. Jimmy said, this is gross. I spent 15, you made 3. This is not the direction, Linda, you're not helping. But I found an affiliate paid for me to go to a seminar. And it was at that seminar that I had probably one of the biggest wake-up calls I've ever had that I still use to this day. And that is anything in life you need to accomplish, somebody already knows how to do it. You just got to figure out a way to go get with those people. And so when I went to that seminar, there was a gentleman on stage that had made in commissions, no kidding, that last year, $600,000. Jimmy and I couldn't tackle him fast enough. We're like, 600,000, he's got our magic number. So I always like to say we rollerbladed with him, and neither one of us had ever had a pair of rollerblades on in our life. We went to dinner with him. We took him to a movie. We would have gotten sleeping bags and slept in his room if he would have let us. And I love this story because you just never know. I always say you're one relationship away. You're just one, right? And I can go back and count so many opportunities, Rick, that came from a relationship, right? And it's funny because now Tony is one of our business partners in many things, including a beach house in San Diego, some commercial buildings. And I always like to say, and even now, he sometimes calls us and asks us our advice. So, it's just, you got to be willing to figure out, how do I get in with these people that already know what I need to know? And so that's what we did. And we picked his brain for as much as we could. And we went home and we just got to work, and it worked. Honestly, I started building a very successful real estate business, and I didn't fact check everything you said, but pretty much what you said. And I grew my business. It became a great cash flow. But in the back of our mind, we know cash flow isn't the answer to everything. You always have to have backup plans because you live long enough, there's going to be some gradually and suddenlies in your life. In other words, things are going to happen that you never thought would happen. I mean, we just recently had one that came out of left field. And we're like, I've never experienced that in my life. Never thought about that happening, right? So, but as much as you can prepare for, or when you have things happen to you, what's your plan to build so that next time the next crash comes along, you're on the opportunity side of it? And that's what we did. We read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Cash Flow Quadrant. We went to any seminar we could go to. We just did everything we could to grow our own knowledge on how to get out of that situation. And then what did people do to never be in that situation? And then how do we get to be those people? And so that kind of is what our journey's been all about. And now just trying to explain to other people, life's going to give you some, ups and downs, and the downs can be opportunities or they can be very painful. You get to decide, So that's how I got into real estate. And then we got the business finally moving in the right direction. And I always like to say, even before we climbed out of that $600,000 in debt, we had bought our first 3 properties. We built a plan when it didn't look like the plan was possible to make $250,000 a year passively. And I believe that, and I'm a faith-based person, so I feel like God, if he puts it on your heart, he's going to show you the doors to open to get it. And that's what happened. I went on a listing appointment, and we'd already made our plan. I went on a listing appointment, and there was a guy that said, I don't want to sell this. I don't want to fix it up. It's got some foundation issues. It's got some other problems. I just want to sell it to an investor or somebody else who can fix it up. I went home super pumped because I'd found our first of 20 houses that we needed. And Jimmy immediately poo-pooed it and said, Linda, you do realize we have no money, and that bank is not going to give us any money. And I thought, oh, that stinks. Went to sleep that night, woke up with a builder's name on my brain, and I called him the next morning, and he said, yeah, what do you want me to do? I said, will you partner with me? Because I don't have the money, and I'll throw in my commission. That's all I got. But I don't have the money, I can't go to the bank. And he said, sure. And so we did that for 3 properties, flipped one of them, kept the other 2. One of them we still have today, and that pays us more than Jimmy's Social Security for 40 years. So, it really is just honestly, I think, kind of not waking sometimes till you're in that fork in the road, but start asking yourself deeper questions of, how prepared am I for some of the things that might come my way in life? Or how could I just get out there and try to achieve more and see who I can become? And in the process, I'm probably going to be better off than if I just think I'm okay. I've got enough money, or I've accomplished everything I need to accomplish. What about just changing it and saying, I want to go see who all I can become? And the way you figure out who you can become is go see what all you can achieve. And so now I just kind of have the mindset of, I wonder who else I can become, because I'm not the same person that was scared to death uh, and $600,000 in debt. And I value who I've become going through that and having learned what I needed to learn way more than anything else. The money's great, and it just provided us an amazing trip to Disney with VIP tours, but that's still not the true value. The true value is who I am today is so different from who that scared person was in that situation so many years ago.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. I've heard it said recently, there's a lot of coincidence, you could say, that happened in that story, and that coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you speak and teach a great deal about wealth building and financial freedom. Would you share with us the role of mindset, leverage, and making your money work for you?
Yeah, I would say first mindset. I think so much of our issue is our mindset and our limiting beliefs. And I don't think anybody is exempt from them, myself included. I just think the difference is learning how to get around them and just test the belief. Because I think anytime you test a limiting belief, you'll prove that it's wrong, or you'll learn something from it that helps you prove it's wrong. But I think so much starts with your mindset of abundance. You have to believe that um, God wants you to succeed at whatever He puts on your heart. I don't think He puts things on your heart to, you know, number one, just prove it can't happen. I just don't believe that. I've had too many things in my life that has been put on my heart that I just start seeing that do the hard work. I always say pray and shuffle your feet, right? I do the hard work, but I see the doors open that I probably couldn't have opened myself, but I had the faith to get started and just, do the work, right? So I think mindset is probably number one.
Mm.
And I think your belief is either moving you towards your goal or it's holding you back. And you got to be realistic about that, because I think you have to be willing to say everybody has limiting beliefs. So they're no different than I am. How can I get around this belief, or how can I prove this belief wrong? Because most of them are just, I have a really good friend named Sid Walker that's been on my podcast. I don't know if you listened to his episode. I love Sid. Just had a conversation with him a couple of weeks ago. And he really has come up with this concept that is your ego. And that when you come from a spiritual place of just asking, who does God have that I need to serve today? And take that ego out of it, how beautiful it can be. And I just think that's so cool, because the truth is, it is your ego, but your ego is there to try to protect you from change or anything, right? And so when you can kind of understand that and just change your belief about, well, first of all, the power you have. I don't have the power to make anybody do anything. I have the power to be willing to take the action to find people who need what I have or who I can serve. but I don't have the power to make anybody do anything that they don't want to do, right? So when I changed kind of my belief around it, that I'm going to do things for the people that need me, and the ones that aren't, I'm just going to move on. They're going to say no, and I'm going to move on. So I think so much of your time should be spent on your beliefs. So many, so much. And then I think what was the other thing you said besides mindset?
Mindset and leverage.
Yeah. Well, I learned very early on that freedom was going to be a huge value for me. I think your soul speaks to you, but we got to be quiet enough to listen, and you got to listen for the clues. And I think the clues are energy, um, excitement, uh, energy and excitement together, and nervousness. I think those are kind of clues that you're on to the right track, because things that you're going to go for that are big, they're going to be a little bit scary. I mean, they're going to be a lot scary, but you have to be willing to go through that scary so that you can get the new credentials, the new criteria, the new confidence that you need to continue that cycle of growth. And if you really think about 10x growth, that's what it is. It's you go make a commitment that you have no clue how to do, no idea. That's what makes it scary. But because you've made the commitment, you're going to go figure out the who or the how or something, right? And once you do that, then you have a whole new level of credentials that you didn't have before. You have a whole new level of confidence. But most people stop and go to complacency when we should go right back out and find the next big, scary commitment that we have. And then once you kind of realize that's the pattern, uh, it's still scary, but it's kind of exciting because you're like, man, I know how to do this. All I got to do is ask myself, Linda, what's that big commitment that the minute you say it, you're like, oh crap, I can't believe I'm even saying this, that I would want to do this or that I could do this. So I think you have to be willing to really, and I think when you turn around and say we're spiritual beings having a physical experience, you try to get the ego out as much as possible, and you kind of want to go see what is possible. I always tell the story that Jeff Wilkinson tells about the warehouse. And the warehouse story goes like this. The guy dies and goes to heaven, and St. Peter's showing him around. And there's a huge building that every corner they turn, he can see a piece of this massive building. And he's saying, man, what is in that building? He's like, St. Peter's going, you don't really want to know. And it's like, no, I'm serious. Finally, he says, okay, I'll show you. And he opens the doors, and inside this warehouse that's so massive are all these boxes that are unopened. And he goes, what are in those boxes? And he says, these are all blessings that God tried to give to people, but they were unwilling to open the box. So when I think about that, I'm like, I don't want any unopened boxes. I mean, sure, I have some, but I want as few as possible. I don't want a warehouse full, right? So I think we just change that to, who am I here to become? And Gary Keller is the one that gave me this advice years ago. I called him because I was so frustrated because no one in my family understood me. Nobody understood me because I always want to achieve. And I don't know, I'm just wired that way, right? And so my sister's total opposite. She likes the same thing every day, same boring schedule. I call it boring schedule because I couldn't do any of it. She's very organized. She's total opposite of me. I say, since God gave you those skills, we're going to use those, right? So we make a great team. But for the longest time, to her, what I did was just abnormal, to go get on a plane and go try to do something. And so I was really frustrated because sometimes the people you love are the ones that don't understand it the most. And it could be friends, it could be family. And so I called Gary one day and I said, Gary, you got to help me. I said, I've got these recruits on this side who don't want more, and I don't understand why. I want to achieve more, and my people don't understand why I want to achieve more. I'm kind of stuck. I know there's an answer, but I can't see it. And what he sent back to me was, Linda, he said, life is about becoming. And the way that you become is you get up every day and you go out there and you see what else it is you can achieve. Sports teams don't win one Super Bowl and go back to wherever they go back to, clubhouse or whatever, and do nothing. They go back out and see who else they can become as a team. And we have to see it the same way. And once I changed that to, I really value who I've become as much as I've valued all the other things that come when you bring value. So I think when you change it and look like that, I think it helps. I think it helps a lot. It does me anyway.
Yeah, that's great. And so mindset, and I think you can create the mindset. The next thing that kind of creeps in could be a sense of imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough for this. How have you coached people through that? Because I can see that prevalent in people.
Well, I think number one, feel it and go on anyway. I still have moments when I have it. I mean, seriously. Um, but here's what I know for sure. So do these 7 other people standing around this circle that I'm talking to. So does every other successful person that I feel like knows more, is more, greater than, has more, anything else more that I could add, right? They have it too. And so I would just say, if you don't feel like you're that person yet, go work to be that person. Just work as if you are already and keep doing the things that move you more to being whoever the person you feel like you're impostering. But we all have it, and don't think other people don't have it. Every successful person I know has had it, and probably will. If you keep achieving more, you're going to keep having it. It's never going to go away. So do it anyway, right? One of the things I do also, Rick, to think to a point to that is, when I'm feeling that way, I go see what I can give those, because usually you're around other people when you feel that way, right? I will see what I can give to those people. How can I add value to them? And I just focus on giving the value to them and take it off myself. Because again, that's another ego thing, I think.
Explain that a little bit more. I think I get you, but a little
Well, let's
more.
say, for example, I'm standing around other people and I'm like, who am I to think that I could be, the next Mel Robbins or whatever? Or must say I'm in a group of people that I feel the imposter syndrome. I feel like I haven't earned the right to be in that group. What I'm going to do is, let's say it's a group of top producers and I maybe haven't achieved that much production. I'm just going to focus on what value do I have that I could give them. Quit focusing on what I think I don't have. What do I have I could give those people? And then that takes away any time for me to think about who I'm not, right?
And being yourself.
Yeah, being yourself and adding value where you can add value.
Yeah, not trying to be something that you're not, I guess is what I'm trying
No,
to say.
absolutely not. People see right through that. Yeah, you can't. Authenticity is super important.
Back to wealth a little bit. There are certain people who have a frame of reference that the pursuit of money is a bad thing.
Hmm.
What advice would you have for them, given your journey?
Well, I love John Maxwell's quote: "You can't outrageously give if you're broke." And I think I grew up in Baptist churches, Methodist churches, all the things. But I also think sometimes people use that as an excuse. I've also learned there's 2 people. There's people that it's not about the money, and there's people it is about the money. And I'm gonna tell you, the people that have lack, it's more about the money. I've noticed. It's more about the money. They'll blame you that you're all about money. They'll do all those things. And you know what that tells me? To you, it's about the money. I believe you bring enough value to the world, you can't keep the money away. So I don't focus on the money. I told somebody the other day, I said, I think thinking back on my commission checks, I still don't see any of the money we make. I don't touch it. There's somebody that handles it. They put it in the bank. I don't do any of that. I don't. So I think I don't focus on money. I focus on value and can I use what I've been given by God to serve other people. And I believe when you bring enough value, the money takes care of itself, right? Or I learn a new skill so that I can make more money in a different way, whatever. I don't think that's the big issue. But I've noticed people that blame other people about the money, honestly, to them, it is about the money. So I just learned to count it off that way. One of the things that happened years ago, there was it was a relative, and not a relative of ours, but our daughter, and the family members came to see our house, and they immediately judged us as these snobby rich people, right off the bat. And it was interesting because they're pretty darn wealthy. They got oil wells, they got they got a lot of money, but they live like they don't, right? And the conversation a lot is around the money. And what's interesting is when things got really tough and our son-in-law got sick, guess who were the first people to be there and stay there, right? And it helped change their view, but I thought, That's just not right." You don't immediately say because somebody's house is big or they have this or that they're all about the money, I'm going to venture to bet 9 times out of 10, they're not. They're not even focusing on the money. They're focusing on value and bringing it to the world. So it's just not something that we talk about a lot, or you know what I mean? I think the people that talk about it are in scarcity. And the way to get out of that is get in abundance. And John Maxwell says you can't be outrageously generous if you're broke.
Hmm.
It's
Yes.
true.
It's so very true. Um, what advice would you have for someone who senses an inner greatness and they might be caught up inside of them, and they're just caught up in the doing, though they haven't broken out of their mold?
Meaning the doing is keeping them from doing the stuff they should be doing.
Yeah, they may be hiding in the doing even.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to be an experiment of one. You know what I mean? Um, because we're all unique and we're all people that um, all have, limiting beliefs. We all have, you know, lack of motivation sometimes, all the things that everybody has. So you have to figure yourself out enough to know if it's really important to get the dreams or the goals that I have. I have a saying, if I was going to do it, I would have already. So how can I get it done? So, like training, I know because I listen to all the wellness people, weights are one of the most important things you can do. I don't like weights. I like it when I'm there, but I wouldn't go downstairs and figure out how to do them, or I wouldn't go to the gym and figure out how to do them. I'm not that motivated to do them, right? But when I'm there, I enjoy it and I do it and I feel great. So I have to say, this is super important. It's one of my life's goal is to live as long as I live, as healthy as I can live. So how do I get myself to do it? Okay, well, I figured it out. I pay a trainer in advance and I set my appointments before the morning of. Works every time, right? So you got to do the same thing with every part of your life. Um, my trainer was on me all the time about stretching. I wouldn't stretch, wouldn't stretch, wouldn't stretch. I said, okay, if I was going to do this, I would have already. How do I do this? Okay, guess what? I found a stretch lab. I pay them, show up for my appointment, they stretch me. Works, right? Same thing with accountability around your productivity stuff. If you're not doing it on your own, what would cause you to do it? Is it committing to another person to do it together? Is it telling your spouse and your kids that when you get this done, they get X and now you're doing it for them, not for you? Would it be a coach? Would it be a peer partner? Would it be putting money on the line if you don't do it? You got to learn you well enough to know, how do I get myself to do those things that are so important, but I'm not doing them? And Mark Willis said something not too long ago. He said that the success you want is in the thing you're not doing. And I thought, ooh, that's so true. So how do I get myself to do it? I know what it takes. Most people know what it takes. It's not a lack of, I don't know what it takes to be successful. It's how do I get myself to do the things that make me successful?
Yeah, I heard the other day, and maybe it was at family reunion, that so many of us are caught up in the race to achieve or maintain mediocrity, and we're missing out on so much more.
Yeah, I think because mediocrity, I have to think about that, but I think mediocrity is kind of comfortable these days. So people don't want to get uncomfortable when it's so comfortable sitting in that cozy spot that they're in.
And that cozy spot might be where everybody else in their circle is at,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
yet they could achieve much more by
yeah,
breaking out of that.
yeah.
Hmm.
So true.
Yeah. Your podcast with Dana Gentry covers a broad range of topics, and I kind of boil them down to mind, body, and spirit,
Yeah.
and take so much from that. A little bit about the mind and body part of it that you talk about, and spirit too, if you want to share some of that. But just what you're trying to accomplish with that.
You know, uh, I don't know how many years ago it's been now, but people struggle with so long about what's your purpose, and I think you get clues along the way, and I think your life's journey starts to mold your purpose. And so I went to a Michael Hyatt thing. I had donated to a charity, and if you donated a certain amount to this charity, a small group of us got to go to Michael Hyatt's house in Franklin, Tennessee, and do just a small little group thing, and then have dinner with him and his wife and daughter. And I love Michael Hyatt. he's one of my favorite authors. And anyway, so I did it, and then I had the spirit kind of tell me I need to see if they'll let me match it and bring my daughter, because my daughter was losing her husband to cancer at the time.
Hmm.
And they said, yeah. So I brought her with me and we went, and you got to get on this, what we call the hot seat. And on the hot seat, they ask you questions and they listen to your energy and your voice and all those things to kind of pick up on what are the things that kind of light you up. I always say, what's your unique abilities or your talent DNA that really honestly God gave you, and when you use it, you're fulfilled and you're excited and all the things. And so it was Michael Hyatt's daughter, Megan, that when she listened to me talk through what I did, she helped me kind of construct. And it was like the minute she said it, I got chill bumps. And every time I say it, I get chill bumps. But it was, I help successful but overworked real estate entrepreneurs understand the power of leverage and passive income so that they can get freedom and margin for what matters most to them. So I think that when I make a decision about something, I filter through that. Does this support that? Does it help with that? Does it not? That's kind of one of the filters that I use. And then the other is Tana and I are super busy and we like talking to each other and we want to hear from certain guests. So we selfishly do it so that we can hear from who we want to hear from and we can talk about what we want to talk about. So it's a little bit of both, but it does fit into my filter of how am I helping successful but overworked entrepreneurs, right? It might be through their health. It might be through their mindset. It might be through productivity, any of those things.
Mm. Well, I love the broad spectrum, and it has helped me tremendously. And I'm a huge fan of the podcast, I must
Yeah,
admit.
thank you.
Yes, and I will say, that I can't tell you how grateful we are for your time and sharing wisdom with us today, and how your story has exponentially impacted my life and my family. When I first heard you and Jim share your story, it was about 9 years ago that I heard it first at a family reunion. And I left the room empowered to change the trajectory of our lives. And, you continue to elevate my goals and vision for really creating a lasting legacy. And, whatever path I was on before, the vision is just so much further beyond. And I'm grateful for your influence on that.
Well, my pleasure. And I truly feel that, number one, no one succeeds alone, including myself. And I feel like when the student's ready, the teacher appears, right? And then sometimes you have to hear the message from many different people. And I'm just blessed that one of the times you needed it, it landed and came from me. But I also think I've accused you before of being our most favorite male listener.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I look at who you've introduced me to, and help me out, Dan Sullivan, Ben Hardy, and you're constantly bringing John Maxwell in. And I just came back last week from John Maxwell. I went to the IMC with him last week, and just empowered, beyond belief, opened up to greater possibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. We're about to spend some time with him in North Carolina with Nito Cobain, which is one of my all-time heroes. If you haven't ever read anything by Nito Cobain, he's a super business person, but he was one of the original motivational speakers with Jim Rohn, Mark Victor Hansen, Brian Tracy, all the original goats I consider of motivational speaking and stuff. So I'm super pumped. We're going to spend a day and a half with John and some other people. Frankly, he just sent me a letter of who all was there, and I don't know most of them, but I'm there from Nito Cobain and John.
Yeah, that's great. Wow. What a privilege. So, Linda, we can't thank you enough again for being here. And how would people connect with Linda McKissack to learn more about what you're doing and what they might gain from your wisdom?
Yeah, I had to make my assistant put it on a sheet because I'm like, I never know these answers, and people always ask. So apparently on Instagram, I'm McKissack Linda. And on Facebook and LinkedIn, I'm just Linda McKissack. So I think if you Google me, I actually asked ChatGPT today who I was just to see what it would say. It's pretty interesting. You should do it. And I thought, you know what? It knows me. This is awesome.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm thinking other people might ask ChatGPT who I am. And we've been having so much fun with ChatGPT lately. It's our new strategic partner. We just went into RV business and we asked it a million questions about RV businesses. And so it's my new strategic partner. And so I thought, I'm just going to ask my strategic partner, who am I?
Yeah. Well, I bring Benjamin over here, and I would say, so Benjamin is our son, Linda.
Hi, Benjamin. Hi there. There's the real talent if he can make the podcast work, right?
He is, yes. And so Benjamin has been with us in our business for, well, since it started, because he
That's
sat
awesome.
around the table with his mother when she first got her real estate license, and
That'll
has
do
heard
it.
about it many, many times. And his sister works with us, and Lori and I are a team. And, I look to you and Jim, and I love to watch you and Jim at events because you just seem to be joyful together. Yeah.
We are, and then there's some, every once in a while there's an unjoyful moment, and then we just laugh afterwards because there's not many of them anymore. Thank God, after 43 years we've worked it out.
Yes.
But he'll have to meet Press, our son that works with us.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
That would be a great connection because he did the same thing, sat around the tables, listened, and was the only child that wanted to be in the business with us. So
And Linda, you may not know, but we're in Maine,
okay,
on the coast of Maine. And if you ever wanted to come for lobster, we'd love to have you.
oh, you know what? That lobster roll just might call my name because I've had one before and they're the best.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know how big an airport you need for your plane, but there's an executive airport.
As long as the jet can land on it, we're good.
Yes. Yep. We've got a couple right within 20 minutes.
Awesome. That's great, Rick. Well, good to
Yeah.
talk to you.
Great to talk to you. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Y'all have a great day.
You too.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon.